Theresa May said she's going to be proposing a bold new offer when it comes to her Brexit deal. Is there a chance that Labour might back it?
Well, of course, Labour joined these talks exactly to try and find a deal that would bring the country together. But I think it's right that we've now left them because, as your last interview just showed, this Tory party is divided, it's falling apart. And where Labour was trying to seek a deal, it was clear that anyone standing for the Tory leadership in the forthcoming leadership race was going to tear that deal up. And it simply wasn't possible to do any constructive talks or anything that could be set in stone with a divided government that has no resolution to the Brexit crisis.
At the same time, though, Labour's pretty split on Brexit as well, isn't it? It's easy to throw stones at the Conservative Party, but it feels like whenever I interview a different Labour frontbencher, I get a slightly different nuance in the take about whether there should be Brexit at all, if there should be a second referendum. You've got your own divisions too, haven't you?
Well, it's great to be speaking to you from here in North Liverpool, and Jeremy came here yesterday and spoke to a huge crowd in Bootle just down the road, and he delivered a message of unity, of trying to bring the country together, which is divided not just on Brexit, but along lines of inequality. And that message of hope is really relevant in these elections that are coming up, because it's real people in these communities that are going out to vote on Thursday. And what they've been affected by is 9 years of grinding austerity, people being pushed into poverty. And whilst we have an array of different parties, we have the Brexit Party, we have Change UK, we have the Liberal Democrats, we have the Tory Party, whatever side of the divide they come down on in terms of a second referendum in the Brexit debate, all of them want to prop up an absolutely discredited economic system that has pushed my constituents here in North Liverpool into poverty. And, Sophie, in the northwest of England, you'll know that we have Stephen Yaxley Lennon standing in these elections, someone who calls himself Tommy Robinson to the electorate. And he is trying to sow hatred and division from the poverty and inequality that has been inflicted here. He is trying to not provide solutions, but actually shift the blame for 9 years of austerity onto minorities, onto the Muslim community. And so it's quite right that the leader of the Labour Party, the one party that can take the fight to the far right here in the northwest and across the country, delivers our message of hope and unity, delivers a message of taking on an establishment that has stitched up an economy. In the last 10 years, the richest 1,000 people have tripled their wealth. Well, no one working in these communities has seen their wages triple. They've seen their wages plummet in the last 10 years. They've seen themselves in jobs, working 3 or 4 jobs to make ends meet. These are the real issues. They're real people going out to vote on Thursday. And the Labour Party is delivering that message that whatever side of the Brexit debate you're on, whether you voted Leave or Remain, the answer to Brexit is the same answer as it is for the country as a whole. It's about bringing people together, not these divisions in Westminster that aren't relevant to my constituents' lives.
From that very lengthy answer, I think I can tell that you're clearly happier talking about austerity rather than Brexit when it comes to the European elections. But of course, people have a right to know exactly where Labour
because
stands.
Our policy is clear on a second referendum.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I have allowed you to speak, a very length now. I would appreciate if you allow me to finish my answer as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think people have a right to know if you're a pro-Brexit or an anti-Brexit party. So what are you? A pro-Brexit party or are you anti-Brexit?
Well, for 2 years now, we've accepted the referendum results and we've sought to bring the country together around a deal and around a new relationship with Europe. But there's no doubt that the chaos that is being created by this Tory government means that a public vote of some sort is more likely. And Labour's policy has always been to keep the option of a public vote on the table. But it is exactly because this is not the split and division in the country at large. The division is along social and economic lines, and we're the party that is challenging that. We want to see a Labour government in the next few years that can transform the lives of people that have had austerity inflicted on them and bring a new economic order to the country.
In the polls today, it's pretty clear that both the Conservatives and Labour are not perhaps doing as well as they would have hoped ahead of that vote. I mean, of course, we don't know the result yet. But in one poll, for example, the Lib Dems have actually leapfrogged Labour. Why do you think it is that your message just doesn't seem to be cutting through when it comes to the European elections?
Well, these are elections that we didn't expect to have. In most polls, we're in second place to the Brexit Party. But of course, the debate has largely centred around a Westminster answer to a political problem. And that doesn't resonate in the communities around the country that are facing different problems. But of course, these are difficult elections. I think EU elections are always difficult elections. And so what Labour needs to do is speak to our voters. I mean, take the Liberal Democrats who are polling better in the EU elections than they have done for a long time. This is a party that is responsible for austerity. It's a party that has, along with the Conservative government from 2010, in government from 2010 to 2015.
So why are they ahead of you in some polls?
Well, the Labour Party is challenging the austerity agenda, whilst the Liberal Democrats often think that they can offer one solution to the Brexit crisis, come down on one side of the argument and ignore the other half of the population. And some people will be attracted by that. But I would ask progressive voters who want to see a change in government, who want to see a Labour government, not to be hoodwinked by a party that's actually responsible for many of the social divisions and economic divisions that led to the Brexit crisis in the first place. But I also think there's a long way to go between now and Thursday, and this debate is ongoing.
It was reported that in a meeting of Labour MPs this week, one of your parliamentary colleagues, Wes Streeting, said that actually Jeremy Corbyn was a bigger issue than Brexit on the doorstep. Is that something that you ever hear when you're door knocking?
It's certainly not my experience of door knocking. I've been around the country. I mean, it is true that for some people, the leadership is always a question, but I believe that it's Jeremy's radical policies, it's policies to transform the economy, that actually his strong leadership has shifted our party to a position where it is really challenging the status quo, that puts Labour in a position to challenge for government. And this debate around Brexit, these EU elections, they're not taking place in a vacuum. The issues that are affecting communities are much wider and broader than the issue of, say, a second referendum. And one problem that I've seen as these elections are being debated, largely from studios in Westminster, is that debate is polarising. It's polarising from those that want no deal, and Nigel Farage seems to have shifted his position to say that only no deal is acceptable, and to others that solely want to remain and not listen to the genuine concerns of people who voted to leave. And so it's absolutely right that there is a party that stands aside from that and tries to offer a message of unity for the country. And the Labour Party is that. But I think with these polls, with these elections, we never expected to have EU elections. And we need to think long and hard about why people are voting or why the polls are giving the message that they are.
Okay. Dan Carden, thank you very much for being on the programme this morning.